Hi everybody! Today I'm going to be showing you how I make a background using coffee. I've mentioned it a few times I think when I've been showing pages that I've just painted the background with instant coffee, and I think I have been asked one or two times how I actually do the background with coffee, and I'm just getting around to showing you how to do that. So if you have asked, and I can't remember who did ask, but there have been a couple of comments I think. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and first of all I'm going to show you a couple of examples where I did use it. So this is from Colouring Heaven Fantasy Cat Special with designs from Jeff Haney. And this is one that I did. And this one is pretty dark. Coffee, this part here in the background, this is where I used coffee. Just painted it on like watercolour and kind of splashed it a bit in the corners. So there we go, that's when you don't dilute the coffee very much. You get quite a dark colour like that. The next one is where I did dilute the coffee quite a lot and it's pretty faint. I'm not sure if it will actually be showing up on camera. Oh yes it is. This one you can see in the background. Here, well, this is coffee and this is quite diluted. And usually I'd rather dilute it quite a lot because you can go on top and do 2 or 3 layers as long as you let it dry in between. And I'd rather, go on top and do a few layers rather than go straight in and be too dark. So yeah, that one's quite diluted, but that's another example of using the coffee in the background. It does make this really nice kind of yellowy golden brown colour, so I do like to use it. The last one was Colouring Heaven Gothic Fantasy Special by Enis Guerrero. This one is Worlds Within Worlds by Kirby Rosanis, and here we go, this is the one I did in here. And for this one I diluted the coffee with the water, and I painted it over the whole page using one of these. I couldn't tell you where to get them because this is actually part of a birthday present from my little nephew one year. I used one of these sponge applicators, just diluted the coffee, dipped that in and just kind of spread it all over the page like that, and then splashed a bit in the corners for these kind of nice watercolour effects. But I wanted to show this one because I did go quite heavy-handed with it on this one, and it does bleed through if you're not careful. So yeah, that page is showing that it does bleed through if you're a bit heavy-handed, so I'm going to have to salvage that page when it comes to it, so I don't think it'll be too difficult though. Okay, but there we go, that's the one from Worlds Within Worlds by Kirby Rosanis. First, before I start on the actual picture I'm doing the background for, I'll just show you the basic idea so you'll know where I'm coming from. You just use like your normal instant coffee. Trying to be careful not to not to show the advertising, but yeah, instant coffee in a jar like that, and you just take a few of the grains or whatever out. I'm not sure what you call these granules. You take those out and just add a bit of water like that. Mix it all up, and obviously the more water you add, the lighter your colour will be, and I usually try to make it pretty light, to be honest, like I said, because I like to do more light layers rather than one heavy one. And when you can test it, this is just scrap paper, a little scrap sketchbook, and then you paint it on, and that is actually quite dark, that one there. So if you want it lighter, add more water. You can always test it, like I said, on scrap paper just to see, and that one will be lighter once it dries. It's quite hard to see, this paper is quite absorbent, but yeah, you can see even now that one is a lot darker than that one. Might be easier on this scrap paper, this is just printer paper. But yeah, that's the lighter one. You can tell that's just got the slight kind of yellowish tint to it there. And obviously you can go back and add more kind of drops or more layers. You can splash it like you do when you spatter, like that. You can do that with it to get different effects going on. But basically that's it. That's how we paint with coffee. We just dilute it with the water and use it just like normal watercolour. And I'll use that one for the picture. The picture that I'm doing with the coffee background, I've already nearly completed it. I've done half the background. It's in this book, Day of the Dead colouring book. Yeah, if you're using the coffee, make sure you do rinse your brush out afterwards, because it does make your brushes all sticky and gunky. And this book has a couple of artists, Mauro, I don't know if you can see them there, Mauro, Mazzara and Andrea Bianchi, but it doesn't say who drew what picture. So this is the picture that I was doing with the coffee background. You can see it down the side here. Yeah, I did do a couple of layers in places, especially where I wanted it to get a little bit darker. And I'll show you how to get these little speckled effects. I'll show you how to do that later on. And this was one that was actually started already. This picture, my mum gave me this book, and she'd started this picture before she decided she wasn't really into it all that much. So she gave it to me because, yeah, she knows I do like Day of the Dead. So yeah, there we go. I'm just into the coffee solution we made earlier, and I'm just painting that on. I don't know if you can actually see it tinting the paper. Yeah, we can see that. It is tinting the paper that very slight kind of yellow. And more layers on top would darken it more towards the kind of golden brown colour. So all I did the other side, I painted it on with this brush. That's what it is, number 3, Royal Round. Again, as I've said before, my brushes are not that brilliant, so this was just a kind of a small one that I could use to go around all these little fiddly flowers. And we're just painting around the flowers here. And while that's still damp, I will show you how to get these. You get those speckled effects by having another little pot with granules in it here. And all you do is you get the granules. It does make your fingers a little bit sticky, unfortunately, but you get the granules and you kind of crumble them. It does end up being a little bit random, but you try and crumble those onto the places where you want the kind of speckled effect, and that dilutes itself into the water and spreads out. You can see that starting to spread out there, and that gives you the darker. If you put a lot on, it just spreads out and gives you an effect like this, but if you put the little dots on, well, it's sort of semi-dry, you get the little spots. And of course, the bigger the granule that drops onto the page, the bigger the spot you're going to get, like that one down there. It is kind of random, but I do like the random kind of effects like that, like you do with watercolours. Get the effects where it's blending into each other. But yeah, I thought the coffee background would work quite well with this picture, because then their faces would stand out as being white, because they're painted white for Day of the Dead. So their faces would stand out as being the white against the kind of creamy yellow coffee. And what I've done the other side is, once I've painted or the background, I've gone around the figures with the white gel pen. I do seem to be going through a phase at the moment of giving everything white gel pen outlines, but yeah, that's what I did. And I will show you that. There's a little bit up here that I haven't done, so I can show you how to do that. And I did go in around the edges of the white gel pen with the watercolour pencil. That kind of matches the same colour as the coffee, but it just gives it a little bit of a darker tone or kind of shade on top of it, so that the white outlines would stand out a little bit more. And let's go for a few more little speckles there. Let's add a few kind of darker blobs, especially around the outlines of the people, because we want that white gel pen to be showing. This paper does take it pretty well. It does warp a little bit, and I've had to flatten it under some books overnight to get it pretty flat to have on camera today. Looks like we might actually be bleeding through to the other side there, but this is a single-sided book, so it doesn't really matter too much. You really need to watch it if it's a double-sided book more than anything. Let's make that corner pretty dark. So my light is coming from this way, so well, that's how I've tried to colour it anyways. Now it's kind of bleeding into the wrinkle on the paper there, so I'll just spread that out a little bit more, even out the tone a little bit. There we go. Some more kind of speckles in that top corner, I think. And quite dark over this side. Pretty random though, but that's the way I like it. You can add more on top once it's dry, once you've got a better idea of how it is going to look like when it's done. You can add more on top of there. Just rinse out the brush so it doesn't all stick together. Okay, here we go. And I did this part of the background last night when I was doing the rest of the picture, and I've left this bit around where his sombrero goes to show you how I was making those stand out with the watercolour pencil. I was just giving him, or them rather, a white gel pen outline, like so. I'll try and remember where I went up to, otherwise I'll be trying to go into the wet coffee now, won't help. I think I went down to here. There we go. Okay. And to make that white outline stand out a little more, I was using this. It's an Albrecht Durer watercolour pencil, and this is burnt ochre, which I think is a nice colour to go with the coffee. And I was just applying some along the edge of the white line. Like that, just very roughly, just to show you guys how I was doing it. I'm using the clean water. I was just spreading that out a little bit, just to, like I said, add a little bit extra colour around the edge of that white line to make it stand out a little bit more. Oops, gone over it a little bit there, but I can go back in with the pen, that's no big deal. There we go. And if there was anywhere I wanted a bit of extra definition, I was using this as a burnt umber. That's 063 from Castle Arts. And I was just adding a tiny little touch around any little bits where I wanted a bit of extra definition. Just barely putting any pressure on. Just again to reinforce that white line and make it show up a little bit better. There we go, and that's how I was doing the background with coffee. Like I've said, we can go back in. You can go back in like that and just add any little places that you think you might want some. And once it's all dry, if you stand it up and tap it, you'll get rid of all these little, the stray kind of granules or grains that haven't dissolved. But yes, once that's dry, I will go around the edges of these flowers, like I've gone around those, just emphasize the edges with the burnt ochre. And you could, if you wanted to, if once it's dried and you don't want to mess around with getting more coffee made, you can do watercolour effects with the pencil, like I showed you in my watercolour effects video. And just add some little bit extra kind of watercolour style effects like that. And because this is watercolour pencil, it is even easier because you can get your clean water again. And just soften those edges. And that way you can control more easily where the bits of your shading are going to go. So yeah, I'm waiting for that to dry now. And then maybe adding a few more extra bits once it's dried. I might add a few more extra bits where I think it needs them. Okay, I've added a few extra bits now where I'm hoping it will dry darker and give me some nice contrast with my white outlines. I added some water here where there were some granules just laying on top of the paper, so I added some water to see how they dissolve and might give me a bit of a nice effect going on there. And now it's just down to waiting for that to dry. And once it's dry, I'll go around my edges with the white gel pen and add a little bit of the shading with the pencils, and that should be it. My picture will be finished, and yeah, I'm really happy with how that background's gone, and I've really enjoyed colouring this one actually because, well, mainly because my mum did start it, so it's made me feel a bit close to my mum colouring that one. But anyways, thank you for watching everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. Take care, and I'll see you in future videos. Bye.